Hey, She family, and welcome back. We are on the countdown here. This is,
Man,
yes, we are still in season 6. I get,
correct.
I've been so turned around. Season 6, we are at episode 9. I
That's
am your
wild.
host, Trish, and your co host,
Gianna, what's going on?
Gigi. What's
Yo,
up?
yo, yo. What's up? I don't know why I'm a gangbanger right now.
You got your snap back to the back.
I'm a gangbanger today, bro. All
Hey, it happens.
right.
um, well, so glad. Like, listen, this season has flown by. We are at episode 9. We only have one more episode after this one. And guess what? We have not interviewed any African American people. So, guess what, y'all? G and I are doing the finale. Now, we coming
Bring
from
it
an
in.
yes, we coming from an African American standpoint. We're going to be talking about racism in America, things that we've experienced. So G's going to ask me questions. I don't know what her questions are. I'm going to ask her questions, and this ought to be fun.
It's juicy. It's about to get juicy. I'm excited. I got juicy questions.
uh, I, it's going to be very fun. I don't know
Yeah.
about juicy, but I am very interested to hear your answers to some of them.
On my end, it's going to be juicy, so prepare yourself. Okay.
Yeah, we definitely we're on different parts of the spectrum, so I am excited. I'm like super
Yes.
excited about it. So,
Yes.
all right, family, you know how we do. Got to get into this tea time. What I've got, I'm not a gangbanger at all. It says one. I know it's a lot. One love, one heart. Let's get together and feel
Feel
alright.
alright.
That is, of course,
Hey,
the late great Bob Marley.
got to love him. Got to love him. Don't you think that love would fix? I just feel like love would fix everything if we could eradicate hate and just get love. It's where does hate even come from?
Satan.
Correct. Correct.
God, God is
Answer.
love. Hate is Satan. So, yeah, a lot of people out here hating on folks today, and
True.
this is not the work of the Lord. Speaking of which, still debating on whether we're gonna do religion
Yeah.
or music next season. I don't know. Maybe I'll do like what do you call it? The vote or whatever.
Oh, a poll.
A poll. There we go. I'll do a poll.
Yeah.
Do a poll.
Oh, you should. Yeah, get the people's input. You know,
Yeah,
I love polls, but get the people's input.
we'll do that. We'll do that. So you don't have anything on your shirt? You just gangbanging?
Nah, I'm all black today, all black everything. I was about to put black lipstick on, but I was like, maybe
What
that's
color is
that
that?
might. This is green.
Oh, okay. Okay, come on,
Mm. Green money team head.
All right. Well, listen, you guys, today we have an amazing interview. We have another Ashley, different Ashley.
Different.
She is Chinese and Irish American. This ought to be good. So let's get into it. Okay, and welcome back, you guys. As promised, we have Miss Ashley in the house. Ashley, welcome.
Hello, hello.
I am excited that you're here. I understand that you are Chinese Irish American. This is
Yes, ma'am.
interesting. So tell us a little bit about your background, your nationality, everything.
So, yeah, I identify as biracial Chinese Irish American. That in and of itself is like a whole nother story. My father's side is Chinese from Hong Kong and Macau. And then my mother's side is Irish American, but they've been here for forever.
Okay.
Gotcha.
That's
Alright.
awesome. That's
Yeah.
awesome. So when people see you, what do you think they see you as?
Most of the time it's like, okay, we know you're Asian, but you look like you're something else too, and we can't really figure it out. So then it's this whole conversation of, well, where do you come from? What are you? You know, where's your family from? And for the longest time, I've like left it up to people to guess because it's interesting for me to hear where other people think I'm from.
Yeah.
For sure.
I just realized you weren't properly introduced.
I was
jumped the
really
gun.
gonna try to swing it in there, like, well, that's good to hear. But these are her favorite five.
I was so excited that I just jumped the gun. Miss Gianna.
Do we need to rewind?
Nope. We just go, Miss Gianna. Do your
I'm
thing.
right in. We're gonna introduce her properly with Trish's famous five, but we gonna get into it. Don't trip. We're gonna jump back into it. This is Miss Ashley. She is from Boston, Massachusetts. Well, she was born in Boston, Massachusetts, and from Boston. Born and from.
Born, raised right outside the city.
Okay, that'll do. She is of the generation millennial, and she comes from a single parent household. She is an only child, and a birthday just passed not too long ago, which is making her a Cancer.
Happy belated.
Thank you.
All right. Now that my rude ass.
Now that we got the formality out the way.
Let's get back to these topics. So that is such a different combination. I know that the Chinese culture does things so differently, and then also the Irish. How did they even meet? Was it military?
No. So my grandparents came over in the mid-late 60s. They came to the States, made a whole life here, and ended up having my father, born here, raised here. And he and my mother kind of hung out in the same friend group, and things just happened. And here I am. Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. So, we're talking race relations this season.
Yes, ma'am.
So, have you ever had issues with racism on the two different sides of your families?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
I think being biracial, you are constantly at this intersection of which way do I go? Where do I fall? How do people perceive me, and how do I want to be portrayed? So I think for a lot of my life, it's been this kind of, I'm not Asian enough for Asian people, but I'm not white enough for white people. So you just got to take me as both and deal with it.
Wow. So you refuse to pick a side.
That definitely came later in life for me. I will say, as a child, it was really confusing because, again, coming from a single parent household, my mother is, again, the white Irish one, blonde hair, blue eyes. You put the two of us together, and at first glance, you go, they are not related.
Right.
Yeah. So it was like, having to comprehend this idea of, okay, she's my mom, but we don't look alike. And, how do I fit in this, like, conservative white American family, looking different? And I think for the longest time, it was trying to assimilate to white American culture and reject my Chinese side of the family. Again, coming from a single parent household, but still having a relationship with the Chinese side of my family, it was just not wanting to go to Chinese school, not wanting to learn the language, not wanting to spend time with the family, and kind of rejecting them so that it was easier for me to assimilate. But I think later on in life, I realized that's not who I am. That's not who I want to be. So I've come to a place now where I'm both. And I refuse to pick one over the other.
And deal with it. I love it.
Exactly.
I love it. And that does come with time. It comes with maturity and different experiences. And, and I love it. I love that you're unapologetically both. So let me ask you, are you trilingual?
No. So the funny part, this is the fun part. My family always says I'm kind of like a walking identity crisis because of my upbringing and, my experiences. So again, I identify as Chinese Irish American, but I grew up in a rather, I guess you could say, affluent white Jewish town.
Mm.
So growing up with lots of white Jewish friends, celebrating Hanukkah and Rosh Hashanah and Passover for fun. But also growing up in Section 8 housing surrounded by Black and Latino families, hearing, Haitian Creole and, reggaeton playing all the time.
Yeah.
So I never really immersed myself in Chinese culture as a kid, so I never ended up learning the language. And I ended up taking some Chinese in high school, never really stuck with it. But the funny part is I actually speak like pretty decent Spanish. Yeah.
I wasn't ready for Spanish.
Exactly.
I know, it came out of left field for sure.
Exactly. I can't cook Chinese food. I can't speak Chinese. But ask me to make you some arroz con gandules and whatever else, I'm with it.
Right.
I love Mexican food too. I say I was Mexican in my previous life.
I do too. Mexican and Puerto Rican, one of those two.
Right. Wow, that's a lot to process. But have you ever been to China? Have you ever been to Ireland?
No. So I've never been to Asia. I do want to go eventually at some point. I was planning on doing a trip with my grandparents to actually go to Hong Kong in China. They go every few years, but now with COVID, that got canceled and everything's kind of up in the air. But I've definitely said I want to go with my grandparents to see where they're from and go with them and, meet people that they know and experience it as their country.
Got you.
Yeah.
Well, I hope that you do get there.
One day.
So of course, we got to kind of dig a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
This is race relations. We're talking racism in America.
Yep.
With you being part Chinese, how do you feel about the leader of this country describing what's going on right now as the Kung flu? What the fuck? Like, what does that do to you?
So thank you for saying that, because I'm like, I don't know if I can cuss here. But literally, it is a big giant what the fuck.
Yeah.
I have said time and time again that he is not a true leader. This country is a melting pot of people, and that is what it will forever be. Whether you like it or not, we all come from different places, and we've all claimed this place as home. And for him to call it what he has been has created so much anti-Asian sentiment. And I specifically say that in not saying anti-Chinese, because I think a lot of people are ignorant to realize the different ethnicities encompass all into one.
Absolutely.
I agree with you.
And it's funny because I had like an encounter, I guess you could say.
Did you?
I was visiting family down in Cape Cod, went to the beach, and you're in the water just hanging out. It's just me and my mom, trying to cool off. And all of a sudden you start hearing people talking. And I will say that, I was there and I'm kind of looking around. I'm like, okay, I'm the only non-visibly white person here. And it's this family and they're talking there, and you start to hear them say, if you see Chinese people wearing a mask, they're sick. These Chinese people have been wearing masks for so long because they knew about Corona and never told us. They're all sick. And it's, you stand there angry and in disbelief and your own emotions trying to process what's going on, because people are racist and people are going to say what they're going to say. But to actually hear it yourself, it's like, how do you process that? Mm-hmm. And then to also be standing there with my mother who's watching me get visibly upset and frustrated, and she's not knowing what to do because she doesn't want to speak for me. But I can't find the words to say it to them because some people are just so ignorant. And I'm a true believer that ignorance is a choice. You choose not to educate yourself. You choose to believe the things that you want to, and there's no changing that. Mm-hmm. So and it's you just stand there and you're upset. So it's unfortunate that these things are going on, but
Wow.
it is what it is. And the only thing that I really think that we can do is have conversations like this to educate people and to let people know how we're feeling, what's going on, and what we can do better.
Yeah.
For sure. And just to even go off of that, to say like, like racism is such an ignorant effing thing to me. Like, to say that Chinese people wear masks because they're sick. Like, you don't even understand that for years, because in China, period, everybody is so clumped together. It's not like the US where you can walk down the street. Exactly. They wear that because it's a lot of people on top of each other. We don't experience that, so we haven't worn masks like that. But that's where your mind goes, is that they're automatically sick. It's such an ignorant effing mindset. It kills me.
Exactly. And part of me was like, do I explain to these people, Chinese people come to America, they wear masks because it's what they're used to. It's a culture.
That's it.
Because the air pollution there is so bad that they wear masks to protect themselves, because the rates of people having respiratory issues there because of the air pollution is so high that they wear masks to protect themselves, and that they come here and that's just what they're used to.
I think you should have definitely said that to them. And then just politely just walk the fuck off, because because then they're forced to either research it or just continue to live in their little ignorant ass world. But my thing is, speak up for yourself. Seriously.
Agreed.
Not in a fucked up way. You know what I mean? Not like, fuck you, no.
You're right. That's
but
not gonna get
just
anybody nowhere.
In a very, just how you just educated so eloquently, educate them and then just walk the hell off.
In the time, it was just being filled with so much anger, not knowing how to express myself in a calm way like that it was easier for me to not say anything than to be angry and, cause a scene. At the end of the day, I'm trying to protect my own peace.
I understand that completely. So I get it. So has that been the most racist thing that you've ever heard, or what's the most racist thing you've ever heard? And what group of people did it come from?
I mean, as of recently, that's like the most, that's kind of been my worst encounter recently. I can definitely say, like, as a child, it was a little bit different. It was, again, me and my mother looking so different at first glance. People saying, well, that's not your mom, you're adopted. I don't know if you necessarily want to call that racist or not, but I think it's...
Well, yeah.
It's a neglect in, viewing people who are multiracial, and that we do look different from our parents.
Right.
Wow. That, oof. I don't know. It's just a different type of racism,
Exactly.
And just from doing this series, I've learned so much. This is amazing to me to learn the different types of things that people have to deal with, in the world. And what it boils down to is we're all humans. We all just want to be treated with respect and as a regular human being.
Right.
And I think that if we all start looking at each other as human beings, it would be harder to treat people like they're animals.
Right.
Exactly.
So
we got to start seeing each other in each other. Like, some things that I do, you do the same thing. We're so much alike through our differences.
Exactly. I think what gets lost with having that type of conversation and that mindset, though, sometimes is that people say, let's all view each other as human, but then forget the race factor and say, I'm going to be colorblind and not see race.
Oh, yeah.
Well, for me, you have to.
You have to see the color.
Exactly. You have to see the fact that I am different from you and that my experiences are different, but that doesn't make them any less valid.
Exactly. So do you communicate a lot with your Chinese side of the family, and then do you communicate with one side more than the other?
So I definitely would say I have a bit of a closer relationship with my mom's side of the family, but I think that's mostly due to language. in, you know, not speaking Chinese. Again, my grandparents come from Hong Kong and Macau. My grandmother speaks fairly good English. She was a teaching assistant in Boston Public Schools. And then my grandfather, his English is not so great. And, you know, so it's harder to communicate with them sometimes. And I think just also culturally growing up here and being biracial and not being fully immersed in Chinese culture, my values and how I live my life are very different.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, I don't want to say it's created a rift, but it's just, I'm not as close with them. But I still communicate with them, you know, I talk to them, and yeah.
Do you feel that they treat you less than Asian because you're not 100% Asian? I mean, you know what I mean?
Yeah. So it's funny because it's always kind of been this thing where it was like, oh, as a kid, it was like, go to Chinese school so you can make Chinese friends, you can learn Chinese, learn the culture, because they knew I wasn't getting it anywhere else, other than just going to their house. And then I think, again, when I was in high school, they knew that my high school offered Chinese. So the expectation was, go take Chinese. So I did. But then it was always, oh, are you making Chinese friends in Chinese class? Exactly. And that's always kind of been the question. Do you have Chinese friends at work? Do you have Chinese friends there? Like, and it's just kind of been like, do I need to have Chinese friends and speak Chinese and, you know, actively practice the culture for me to validate,
right,
you know, that to you? And there's this thing, when I go out to eat with my grandparents are very active in the Chinatown community here too. And it's kind of been, you know, they'll run into people and they'll start speaking Chinese and they'll introduce me in Chinese, but then they have to follow it up with explaining to people I am what's called juxing, which translates basically to like bamboo rod. So it's somebody who is American born, who isn't very close with Chinese culture, and they're very westernized. So they are Asian and Chinese on the outside, but they're kind of empty and hollow on the inside. And that's why it's the bamboo. So it's kind of the same idea of calling someone like a banana, so to speak. And it's, for me, it's kind of been like, why do you need to offer an explanation?
What is it called? How do you
Jook-sing? So it's Jook sing. There's different ways which you can spell it in English, but it's, yeah.
Okay.
I think that is
a question, G.
Now I got two questions. I just think that so you have that experience with your grandparents. Does that make you not want to bring your Chinese culture? Like, does that make you not want to be more a part of Chinese culture? How does that affect you? Does it make, okay, sorry, hold on. As people, we like to be accepted into our families. You know what I mean? Like, we're blood. I want to be able to connect to you. How does that affect that? Does it make you want to be more? Does it make you want to conform more? Or does it make you kind of push away more because you're like, I don't even want to be in that mindset?
I think it's both. It's frustrating in the sense of, why do you have to offer an explanation? And, you know, I am who I am and you should just take it. But at the same time, it makes me kind of want to push closer to them for them to realize that they have to accept me as both. And that I am and I will never be fully Chinese. It's on both. And I was born here and I have a different experience and my culture is different than yours.
Right. Holy crap. I gotta remember my second question.
All right. So I have a question. Are your grandparents and your mother close?
More or less, kind of. I think, you know, with my parents having split, my grandparents and my mom, they kind of went their separate ways a little bit. But now it's always kind of been like, if I go out to lunch or something with my grandparents always invite my mother to come, or they're always asking how she's doing. Like, they always ask how my mom's side of the family is doing and stuff like that.
Have you guys ever had a mixed family event, like let's say your birthday or something that has to do with you, and both sides came?
Not really. I think I've always kind of like done things separately a little bit. The only time I can really think of them coming together was my aunt, so my dad's sister's wedding, where like obviously my mother came, and then it was like my grandmother, my great grandmother came too from my mom's side of the family. So it was nice to have them there and kind of have my mom's side of the family like see and experience that culture and that side of my family.
Mm-hmm. Right, I remember. I want to say I know, but I really don't know. This is just from like media's portrayal of the Chinese culture. I would say that the Chinese are very honor-based and respect-based, a very respect-based culture. What are some things that you have done that might seem normal to is dishonorable to your grandparents or your father's side of?
Yeah. So I will lead with that in saying that my Chinese side of the family is very, very, very traditional Chinese. It is very much about family. You respect your elders. You are not a representation of yourself, but you're a representation of your family and what the family values and things like that. So I think the biggest thing for my grandparents has probably been me not finishing college.
Oh, shoot.
Where they had always like set aside money for me to go to school, and it was, you know, you're going to go to a good school, you know, you're going to get a degree, you're going to get a good job.
Right.
And it was, you know, me not wanting to go to college at first. It was going to a public university, not a private, choosing sociology as my major instead of
medicine,
pre-law or medicine.
Right.
Exactly. Yep. And I think that was all kind of hard for them to deal with, but then me choosing not to go back and not finish. Even to this day, my grandmother brings up sometimes like, oh, you know, why don't you go back to school? And I'm like, I would sit there and I would kind of think to myself, I'm like, Grandma, I don't want to. Like,
right. Straight up,
it's not for me.
I don't want to do it. Yes.
Like, you know, I already have a career. Like, I'm doing my thing. And like having to explain to them, like, I make more money now than I would if I went back to school.
Right.
You should tell her in Spanish that you don't want to go back.
Wow, that's wild.
She's always like, why do you go to Mexico so much? Like, you know, why don't you go to China?
So we have talked about your Chinese side of the family quite a bit.
Yeah.
Mainly because I think that is the dominant, like when I look at you, that is the dominant thing that I see.
Yeah.
Let's talk about your other side, your Irish side of the family. I don't know a lot about Irish people. I do appreciate the you know, the Irish green beer and things like that, but that's pretty much, you know. So tell us about some of your Irish family and that culture there. And you did mention that they are very conservative, so I'm interested in that.
So let me just preface this in saying I say Irish because I feel weird just saying white.
Okay.
It's, you know, I believe it's my great grandparents that came over from Ireland, so we've been here for quite some time.
Gotcha.
But I identify as Chinese Irish American because I feel just weird saying I'm Chinese and white, because what is white? Like that's
it's a made up construct.
Exactly.
Okay.
So that's kind of where that comes from. But I mean, ultimately, they're kind of your conservative white American family. I mean, my great uncle served in Vietnam, is still very, you know, proud of that. My mom's two brothers have been in the military, and, you know, one's now a police officer, and it's, you know, we hang American flags on our house.
So I know you've probably heard a lot of very interesting things about the state of America and what's going on. There are a lot of, you know, protests going on around the country. a lot of things that do have to do with police brutality and things like that. How does your other side of the family generally feel about the Black Lives Matter movement?
As respectfully as I can say this, I don't think they understand what it is and what it's about. They are very voiceful, I will say, on social media in that blue lives matter, all lives matter. And, you know, I have definitely shared and posted my articles and my thoughts and my feelings regarding that and saying, I believe Black Lives Matter. And that's where we need to start. And it's funny because you get the family members who like and who comment and say, oh, you know, that's so beautiful, you know, whatever I'm saying. But then they go back to posting their all lives matter, police lives matter, who's brave enough to share this type of thing. And I'm kind of like, where does that come from?
Right.
And it's funny because for me, it's frustrating because it's like, you can't just support me and my words and what I'm saying, because ultimately I'm supporting another cause that isn't about me. And you can't just support my words. If you're going to like and comment and whatever else, I want you to do that to everyone else too. Don't just do it for me because we're family.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you speak up on it.
It's been tough.
I'm sure.
It's been a struggle. It's definitely been defriending some family members here and there on Facebook.
Really?
And more or less just because you get frustrated seeing certain things. And again, it goes back to trying to protect my own peace. And it's getting frustrated, not with some random person, but it's getting frustrated with family. And at the end of the day, you know this person isn't a bad person. It's just they come from a different generation.
Right.
They have had different experiences, and trying to understand all that and what shaped their views, while also trying to explain to them my views and my experiences and, you know, how they need to interpret things.
Did you inform them of the situation that you encountered at the beach?
So that was more recently, and, you know, I definitely, like, you know, me and my mom went back to my aunt's house, and it was like, hey, guess what happened at the beach? And it was this whole, like, what the fuck, like, really type of situation, and like them all being baffled and kind of saying, oh, well, you know, I wish I was there because I would have said something. And it's kind of like, you know, you would say something because I'm family, but
right,
if it was somebody else, would you speak up?
Yeah.
Girl, you better preach today.
You know what? I'm really, it does baffle me because there are a lot of white families wherever they're from, whether it's Ireland or wherever. There are a lot of white families that do have interracial, like, grandkids and things like that, and they love the grandkids. They love them. So, but can be totally against the other side of that grandchild's, you know what I mean? That baffles me. And it's like, we gotta, again, start seeing each other as, oh, that could be my niece, that could be my nephew, that could be my grandchild,
right?
You know, no matter the color,
right?
So I don't know. So your Irish side of the family. So I'm assuming they'll be voting a different type of way that I would probably be voting in November. How does
I think
that?
Kind of on the fence.
We all on the fence. I'm on the fence. Yeah. I'm not saying that I would vote for. I'm not gonna say I'm gonna vote for Trump or nothing like that. But
you only have one other choice.
Exactly.
And I don't want to vote for him. What am I gonna do?
But by not voting,
I understand.
You do vote for him.
So. I understand. I'm just saying we all on the fence right now. It's a terrible place to be.
I was pissed about the last election. I didn't want to vote for her, but I did. But I didn't want to. I'm
And
just being honest.
I know that we're getting a race election, but is this going to be a pattern for the next 4 years? We just voting for people that we just don't want to vote for?
Like the lesser of two. Yeah.
Is that what we coming to? Sorry.
I hope.
I already said I'm trying to find citizenship somewhere else.
Your grandparents going to be like, go to China.
Right.
Go to China.
They probably already have your dual citizenship paperwork together.
I'm not trying to go all the way over there. I'm upset.
Does your Irish American side of the family think a certain way about your Chinese side of the family?
No.
Okay.
I've never like heard them ever, you know.
So you've never heard them say kung flu? I'm just not your family, you know.
Yeah, exactly. Nothing necessarily like referencing my family. But have I heard them say certain things that kind of rub me the wrong way? Maybe.
Yeah.
I think it was always kind of like when I was younger and I was a kid, it was like, you know, oh, she's different. Like, oh, you know, but my great grandmother, and, you know, God bless her, but it's like she always had this thing of introducing me to people as, oh, this is my great granddaughter, my Oriental pumpkin. And like, again, it's like, okay, different generation, different time, you know, you never referred to people as Asian. Asian people were always Oriental. Like, and now looking back at that, I'm like, she really called me Oriental? Like, I'm not a
right.
Oh my gosh.
It was things like that, and you know, it's just funny. Like, I remember at one point too, one of my cousins started dating an Asian girl, and apparently my uncle was like, where's the pictures of Ashley? We gotta show we're diverse. Like, you know, things like that.
Wild.
Yeah. So again, it goes back to the whole like identity crisis. I'm kind of the walking United Nations for that side of the family.
But it's also that's so insensitive.
I think now with me being older and speaking up, they've kind of realized those things, because as a child you hear these things and, you know, it makes you uncomfortable and you go, why am I being pointed out?
Right.
But you don't have the words to express how you feel because you don't know how you feel. You haven't experienced these things before, and you have no real explanation for what's going on. You just know that you're uncomfortable.
Right.
Well, I'm glad you're speaking up. Definitely.
Thank you.
You deserve, you know, to have your voice heard and respected on both sides.
Right.
So, how were you raised to view other races?
I am forever thankful for my mother and the upbringing that she provided me with. Again, being a white single mother, raising a, you know, physically looking Asian child in a predominantly, again, Black and Latino community in a white affluent town. That's all hard to navigate in and of itself. And it was always people are people. And, you know, you don't treat anyone different based on how they look. And I think for me that rung really true in that despite the fact that I looked different from my mother, it was never like she didn't love me. So having that example of somebody who looks different in providing so much care and love, I learned to do that with other people too, regardless of what they looked like.
That's amazing.
Beautiful. I know.
Salute to Mom. So how diverse is your friend circle? Current, like now, you know.
Right now, I mean, I will say that it's predominantly like Black and Latino friends. And, you know, my place of work is predominantly white. And that's not to say that they're not my friends, but I think that there's a difference between the friends that you choose and the friends that you work with.
They're called coworkers.
Exactly. And things like that. But I mean, for the most part, I feel like I've always kind of gravitated more towards Black and Latino communities, because it's never kind of been a question of, are you white enough? Are you Asian enough for us? You're just you. Like, you tell us who you are.
Yeah. Yeah,
Mhm.
that's awesome. Do you experience any issues at work?
No, I mean, I'm thankful that like my company is young and progressive, and you know, it's I can't say enough good things about the company that I work for. I really do love them.
Good,
That's love.
good.
But I think again, it's just, you know, you kind of look around and you see a lot of white people. I mean, I work in the office. Granted, we're a hospitality group, and it's, you know, restaurants and a nightclub, which, you know, are always mixed. But working in the office side of things, it's a little different.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. Well, this has been like really great to just kind of take a look into your world and just see the different kinds of things that you deal with, as far as racism is concerned. Because me, as being an African American woman, I deal with totally different types of things, and
Exactly.
so that's why I really have loved this season, because you just kind of get a view into everybody's experience. And
Mhm.
yes, racism exists, but everybody is experiencing it differently,
Right.
Exactly.
you
Yeah.
know? Um, oh, I did want to ask this question. All right, so there is a unique relationship between Chinese people and Black women because of the hair industry. Um,
Hmm.
Chinese people, that country, it like everything is made in fucking China, everything. You know what I mean? So
Yep.
we're like, the hair industry is a big thing for Black women.
Hmm.
Um, is that even a discussion? Like, is that a topic or not really?
So I've never discussed it with anyone really. I mean, I've discussed it with one of my friends, my friend Kaylesia, who actually
Mm.
put me in touch with you.
Yes, thank you,
She,
Kay.
thank you. Um, she and I believe, have had this conversation, and I can't remember what it was, but there's some documentary actually that talks all about this. And I think it's a video from Vice actually, and it's basically the exploitation of Asian women for their hair,
Mm.
uh, in to, you know, create wigs and hair pieces and things like that, regardless of who the consumer is. Because I think at this day and age that we're in, you know, you see white girls walking down the street with clip-ins or sew-ins, and it's just, you know, everyone's
Yeah,
got fake hair now.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and it was, I think people neglect where their hair comes from when they buy.
Mm,
And
Mhm.
I think that ultimately we need smarter consumers.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
It's a whole, yeah,
It is a whole complicated like
It is.
thing.
it is.
It is.
Seriously.
Um,
I think just in general, the Asian and Black relationship is so complicated in
it
and of
is.
itself.
It's complicated because for me, now this is just me, and I don't know, I'm not speaking for any other Black women, but the hair, you right,
Mhm.
the manicure, pedicures,
Mhm. Yep.
it's a thing.
Yeah.
And you feel like, as a Black woman, that you're you're accepted because you are a consumer and your money is
Mhm.
green, and they want
Right.
they
Yep.
want the green money. But I don't know if the respect is there.
Yeah.
um
I think
yeah.
so. There's always been this idea within a lot of Asian cultures that it's the darker you are, the poorer you are.
Mm,
And that's why skin bleaching is such a big thing in Asia. Because if you have dark skin, well, then you come from a poor family, you work on the farm, and that's why your skin's so dark. And,
wow.
and even, you know, my grandmother has told me, like, you're too dark. And it's like, Grandma, I like going on vacation and sitting on the beach. You know? So whether or not that's where it stems from, but I also think it stems from more of the whole model minority myth, in that Asian people are the model, in that you're not supposed to be like the Black community. It's this, historically, these concepts that we've come up with that are so deeply ingrained into, you know, the first generation that comes here. It's just, it's unfortunate, but
Yeah.
I think it's having conversations like this that ultimately create change.
Question. If I'm not sure. I know that the thing about it is that African Americans are one side of the pot, and then we have Africans from Africa that are another side of the pot. When and I know that there are very big differences, but in the African from Africa culture, they have a lot of culture and a lot of honor, and, you know, things in the way that they move is very cultural. They just have a lot of culture that we don't have as African Americans.
Yep.
I wonder, do Chinese see them as being more honorable, or do you know? Or being more acceptable, or is it still their skin is dark, so they're poor?
I don't, in all honesty, and I'm just speaking for myself here, I don't know.
Okay.
It's a conversation that I've never had.
Right.
I mean, I really can't speak on it, but I would imagine it's just kind of viewed as the same.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, our skin do look, we dark.
Yeah,
we all dark.
I'm hella dark, so I know when I go in, sometimes they'll speak their language, and I'm like, what in the fuck are they saying? I'm gonna take me a goddamn class so I can see what the hell they talking about. I wonder the conversations that happen. Like, it's
For
probably
sure.
some fucked up shit. You think?
I mean, I will say, I've cultivated a relationship with my nail lady, and she'll tell me, and she'll tell me things sometimes that she's talking about other people, and I'm like, damn, if you say that about her, what do you say about me? Like,
it's in real life.
She ain't saying it about you though, because you know, you're accepted.
It's questionable. It's questionable.
Yeah. So I don't know.
There was a question on the question list that I wanted to make sure that we touched, just because I wanted to see your response and see how you think about it. What in the U.S., what race do you think is the most disrespectful? Was that it? What race do you feel is the most disrespected in this country?
Is the most disrespected?
Yeah.
I will say Black people. I mean, yeah, I think with the current climate of what's going on, and just historically speaking, the Black community has been exploited and used and abused for the benefit of other people in so many ways. I mean, even talking about the model minority myth, when all of this started happening, you know, with George Floyd and Black Lives Matter coming back up again, I had a conversation with one of my girlfriends who is Black, and she started asking me, you know, well, how do Asian people feel about this? And I said, I can't speak for Asian people, but I can speak for myself and say that Asian people need to realize that in order to support Black people and Black Lives Matter, we need to acknowledge that we've also exploited Black people for our benefit in model minority. That in order for us to be viewed as respected and educated and affluent and all these things, it was putting down another community. And, you know, we're not just talking about, you know, white people being racist. It's everybody. I mean, you can be racist against your own kind.
That's what we were talking about.
So that's the thing. And I think, you know, having this conversation with my friend too, it was also this concept of like colorism within the Black community. And it's, you know, it's, I will say without a doubt, I think that, you know, Black people in America are the most disrespected.
Wow.
I think I just wanted to kind of
thank you for asking that question.
For sure. That was a good one for sure. And I was thinking that I think that even we've had a Native person on here too. I think we're both up there.
Yeah.
Honestly, Native Americans have we're both up there.
Yeah.
It's rough.
So here's the magic question, Ashley, before we get out of here.
Yeah.
Do you think that we're going to be able to get past this shit?
It's such a loaded question. And again, this is a conversation that I had when, things started really coming to life recently, was, can you ever get rid of racism?
Right.
I'm a firm believer you can't. It will always be there.
Yeah.
People will always find a way to dislike somebody else for some reason. And will we get past this? I'm not sure. Can we improve? I hope so.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it has to do with, millennials in younger generations speaking up, using their voices, going out and voting, having conversations like this, not just, with our friends and family, but, with strangers, and using technology for our advantage in, spreading the word and in making our discussions public and things like that. I think ultimately it comes down to education and just, having an open conversation.
Yeah. Well, I love it. I love your viewpoint on it. I so appreciate you allowing us a chance into your world and, just kind of giving us an insight into the different cultures that you belong to and the different experiences that you've had, just as being Ashley in America. You know what I mean? So thank you so much.
Of course. Thank you.
It has been a pleasure. You are welcome here anytime. You are part of the family.
Wonderful.
Girl.
Is there anything else you guys want to say before we get out of here?
I just want to say thank you so much, one, for having me, but also doing what you're doing in creating a space to have these conversations. Aside from just being a part of it, I'm thankful for people like you who are creating platforms like this.
Oh, thank you. I get emotional. I
So
do.
beautiful.
All right. Well, you guys, thank you guys. Until next time.
Thank you.